Hello and welcome to GameSack. That's right, it's Left in Japan 6. And we've got 10 more games to talk about that never left Japan, especially back in their day.
Not just 10 games, these are 10 awesome games that you're going to be pissed that never made it out of that country.
That's right, I'm actually pissed, but
I am too.
Thankfully we can import them, and some of them, I hope you imported them a long time ago because they're kind of expensive now. So anyway, let's just get right on into it. Urusai Yatsura, My Dear Friends by Game Arts on the Mega CD is based on the manga and anime in Japan. Or is it Dear My Friends as the game case says? I don't know. Anyway, this one is a point-and-click adventure where you can interact with lots of stuff. Of course, everything is in Japanese, so I don't have a firm grasp of what's going on. But basically, you play as Ataru, who's a high school hornball running around trying to pick up every single girl he sees. But the problem is Lum. She's an alien and she thinks she's your wife since you accidentally proposed to her. The original voice actors of the anime are here to voice their characters, and the whole thing is quite the production. The animation is full screen and it looks awesome. Now this isn't grainy FMV, but rather proper looking in-game animation. In fact, I've got to say it's definitely some of the best traditionally done animation I've seen done for any system in the 16-bit era. Anyway, back to the gameplay. You can look around at things, talk to people, and even interact with certain items in any given scene. Looking at or touching certain things can make odd things happen for absolutely no reason whatsoever. It just shows how whimsical the game is, and I love that kind of stuff. You can also pick up items and carry them in your inventory. You'll definitely need to get familiar with this, as you'll need to use an item or something on somebody to proceed and all that good stuff. Sometimes it's funny, like giving flowers to this dude, which seems to embarrass him. I mean, come on, can't a dude give another dude some flowers at the local high school? You go from location to location via a giant map that links everything together. I love games like this. For some reason, they just really intrigue me. You can use the Japanese mouse, and that helps tremendously when navigating throughout the game. I don't know if the US mouse will work, as I don't have one to try. But it's still quite playable even with the regular controller. You can even find a CD which acts as a sound test for the game. Speaking of which, the music, while simple, is pretty good and definitely fitting. The graphics are all really bright and colorful, and I've already mentioned the superb animation. You can also find game cartridges to play on your in-game video game system. These are pretty cool. One is a one-on-one fighting game that even 2 players can play. It's kind of floaty, but it's still kind of fun. Another is a defender-like shooter with giant ships that drop smaller ones and you need to destroy them all. In the third game, you play as a fat white cat who's trying to catch all of the food as fast as he can as it's dropped from the sky. But be careful, don't catch any of the non-food items or you'll sleep for a long time. I love that they thought to include stuff like this.
You win!
Now this isn't the longest game in the world, but you'll be going back and forth trying to see which item works on what just to get further. So it actually might take you quite a while, especially if you don't understand the language. Everything is voiced in Japanese and there are no subtitles or in-game text at all. That means they'd have to translate and re-record all of the voices, and it's likely they didn't want to spend the money or the time to do that. It really is no wonder why it wasn't released anywhere else. But the anime scene was starting to bloom in the US when this game came out, so who knows, it could have been a sleeper hit.
So you all know that as far as shooters go, I tend to like the cute ones like Parodius or Air Zonk. Well, Harmful Park for the PlayStation is another cute 'em up, and it's easily one of the best in the genre. I don't know what the story is exactly, but I can guess that it revolves around an evil scientist who's taken over an amusement park and made it evil. What better setting could you have for a cute 'em up? From the first few moments of playing, I knew I was experiencing something very special. I was glued to the screen just soaking in all of the awesome detail the game offers. Every level is loaded with animation and funny artwork and just insane ideas. Your character controls well, and you have 4 different weapons that you can switch to at any time. They're all variations of weapons that are standard in most shooters. You've got a basic potato shot, laser ice cream, and a homing jelly shot. There's even a pie shot that isn't quick but is powerful. Each of these weapons can be leveled up 4 times and they all have their own special shot. Every level is designed really well and is loaded with enemies and gems that you can chain for lots of points if you're into that kind of thing. For me, I just enjoy playing the game and soaking in the atmosphere. Like here, where a couple is getting married and some guy runs in and takes the bride. Then right after that, a huge monster of Frankenstein shoots lasers at you with his middle fingers. I was laughing my ass off at all of this. The music is really wacky and is perfect for the game, but there's only 1 or 2 tracks I'd listen to outside of playing. It's a shame that Skythink Systems isn't around anymore, as they definitely had talent. If you want to play this game, which I think you should, then the best way to do so is to download it from the Japanese PSN store like I did. I'd really like to have a physical copy of this game, but sadly I can't find one for less than $250 and I'm not going to pay that much, but playing it here on my PS3 is the next best thing.
Lunar Magic School on the Saturn is a side story to the Lunar RPG franchise, or Lunar as some people say. This is a port of the original game on the Game Gear, which was also only released in Japan. And if I have a choice between playing a Saturn or a Game Gear version of a game, I'm going to choose the Saturn version every single time. You begin the game with Ellie, Lena, and soon Senya, who've been recruited to attend magic school. Each student has their own magic abilities, and now it's time to do some learning. But there's evil brewing about, and of course, you're just going to have to take care of that sooner or later. Anyway, first off, I must say that this game feels very smooth. The characters move quickly and smoothly, and it doesn't feel like the game is wasting my time. And check this out, the characters can even move diagonally! I never understood why all RPGs just don't do this. The battle system is pretty good. You have your attacks and your magics. But each time you defend, you'll gain some magic points back, and you'll have to do this more often than you might think. It's not a big deal or anything, it's just kind of interesting. In later chapters, characters can combine their magic together for more powerful attacks. The battles are quick and usually take less than a minute. The graphics are nice and pleasant with good sprite work and transparency. The battles also look nice, but I just wish there were more variety in the backgrounds. The music is good, but I also wish there was more of it as well. Sometimes you'll get an FMV anime cutscene to advance the story, and they look okay. There are no items to buy in the game, no inns to stay at, in fact there's no money system at all. And honestly, this is all kind of refreshing. Your magic levels up with you, and this game is pretty much all about the magic. One really nice feature that I wish every RPG had is the ability to save anywhere and anytime you want except during a battle. But if there's one thing that brings this game down, it's the random battle encounter rate. You usually don't have to move very far at all, and then God, another battle? Fortunately, the battles are quick like I said, but it still gets really annoying. So why didn't this come out elsewhere? Well, because this is a Saturn, that's why. But with a good translation and some rebalancing of the battles and the encounter rate, this could have been a really nice RPG in English.
The Adventures of Little Ralph is an action platformer for the PlayStation. This is another game where I have no idea what the story is, but it's completely playable without knowing any Japanese. In fact, there are only two buttons that are used. There's the jump button and the action button, which swings your sword. There's lots of platforming going on here, and Ralph feels up to it as he controls fairly well. I did have some problems with judging platforms, but once I got the feel for how Ralph controls, I did just fine. That's a good thing, as the game is loaded with platforming and some of it's pretty tricky, but they all have patterns, and once you figure them out, it's pretty easy. The one part that I had tons of trouble with is this stupid minecart. Holy crap, I died a lot here. Thankfully, the game has infinite continue, so I could keep trying, and of course keep dying. Speaking of dying, Ralph can take 2 hits before he's done. I think a life bar would have been better here, but it is what it is. Ralph has a sword for his weapon, and it can do some cool things. You can hold a charge shot that'll knock one enemy into others, and it'll take them all out, kind of like dominoes. You can also do a downward thrust, which is really fun and useful for killing enemies below you. There's also lots of stuff to collect, mainly fruit, that'll build up your score for 1-ups. Treasure is hidden just outside of the screen, so it's worth it to scour each level, as you never know what you'll find. This is a pretty nice game graphically. The levels are all loaded with bright colors and detailed backgrounds. The music isn't bad either, and I like a lot of the different tracks. I really wish I had imported this game back in 1999 when it was released, as it's another game that now sells for well over the $100 price tag. Again, I was able to download this game from the Japanese PlayStation Store, and I'm playing it on my PS3. This is the easiest and cheapest way to play this game, and it really is super cheap, only a couple of dollars. Do yourself a favor and download this title if you can, you won't be disappointed.
Saturn Bomberman Fight is a really cool game for the Saturn. In this one, you choose from a lot of different characters to play, but the first thing you're probably going to notice is that this takes place using an isometric view. Overall, the weapons and tactics are very similar to your average Bomberman game, but with a twist. In this one, you're battling an opponent and you both have a life bar. So it's almost like a Bomberman one-on-one fighting game, kinda. You also have the ability to double jump, which is a really cool way to avoid bomb blasts. As I'm sure you can guess, your goal is to get the opponent's life meter down to 0 before they do it to you. You can blow open boxes and objects to reveal special items. These can help you or even hurt you. For example, they can take away your ability to jump for a short amount of time. Or even worse, they can make your controls backwards. Now, the control on an isometric viewpoint is already kinda goofy, and having them backwards really messes you up. But the power-ups can also do good things like making your bombs blow up faster, or laying 3 of them down in a row, and other cool things like that. There's even a little horsey you can ride. It really is a blast to play, pardon the pun. When you get the big bomb, you gotta be careful to get away from the blast because you might end up killing yourself. I think most of the times I died, it was from my own hand rather than what the enemy threw at me. There's also a multiplayer battle mode for up to 4 players if you want complete chaos. Unfortunately, Dave wouldn't play with me because he hates isometric games. Or it might be because I smashed his Game Boy in the last episode, I don't know. Nah, that can't be it. It's gotta be the isometric thing. There's also a survival mode where you just keep going as far as you can without continues. The playfield is small and it can be kind of hard to make things out sometimes, but overall I think the game looks really nice. The music is really good as well and it's definitely worth listening to even when not playing the game. I have no idea why this game never came out of Japan, but it really should have. There's very little in the way of a language barrier here and pretty much anyone can just jump right in. You'll only really be missing out on the story. Definitely check this one out if you like Bomberman.
Ready?
Nah, you're wrong. It's because you destroyed my Game Boy.
What? It's not because of the isometric view.
No.
Would you have played it with me if I hadn't destroyed your Game Boy, even though it's isometric? Would you?
I would have.
Really?
I hate isometric games, but I hate that you destroyed my Game Boy even more.
Okay. I'll try to undestroy it in the future.
Okay, please.
Anyway, we've got 5 more, so let's just get right back into it.
Here's Twinkle Tail, a run and gun game on the Mega Drive by Wuz. Wuz was a good developer, but Wuz wasn't meant to be, and as far as I know, they only released this one and it was a hit. I mean, I think it's a hit because I really like playing this game. I don't know the story, but looking at the opening cinema, it looks like a bunch of people lost some jewelry and a witch found it all. She asks you to return the jewelry to each person. The problem is that everybody that lost jewelry lives in a heavily guarded area. You need to kill all of their minions and return the jewelry to the rightful owner. So off you go on your quest. Luckily, you yourself are a witch and you know how to defend yourself. You have 3 different weapon types and each one can be leveled up 3 times. Using the right weapon against the right enemy will kill it pretty quickly, so be sure to try them all out. You also know 2 types of magic that'll be helpful along the way. You start the game pretty weak and only have a couple of bars of health. Each level you make it to adds 1 more piece to your health bar. The game is still fairly tough and you start out with only 3 continues. Don't worry though, as you earn another continue every 70,000 points and it doesn't take long to get there. The problem that some people might have with this game is that once you use a continue, you start at the very beginning of the level. I'm fine with that though, because the levels are all really fun. The stages are all well designed and some of them even have branching paths. I like that you can shoot your weapon in any direction you want, but I don't like that you can't strafe during a level. However, once you fight a boss, you'll only be able to shoot straight ahead, so that's cool. The bosses are all huge and really cool looking. I like fighting this huge spider. He's large, menacing, and animated really nicely. In fact, the whole game is really nice looking and it has a great atmosphere. And of course the music is really good and I enjoyed most of the tracks in this game. I'm curious because I think this game was going to be released worldwide because the back of the box has pending patents in many different countries. But it wasn't, so be sure to rush to eBay and pick one up as it only goes for around $300 these days. Sure am glad I got mine a long time ago.
The Laughing Salesman by Compile is another point-and-click adventure for the Mega CD. This one is also based on an anime, and this game features 3 episodes. We could have easily included this one in our WTF episode, or maybe even a Halloween episode. It's messed up. Basically, Mr. Moguru is a salesman who never charges his clients anything and instead tries to fill gaps in their soul. If you ever see this creepy bastard, you run. You run fast and you run far. He will wreck your life in unimaginable ways just for his own amusement. Take this guy. All he has to do is walk down the street and women love him and men want to be commanded by him. Everyone thinks he's the most responsible person on the planet. But the truth is, he only pretends to be confident. He also pretends to be able to hold his liquor when in reality he really can't. Enter the laughing salesman. Oh god. He offers a way for him to depend on others rather than to be depended on all the time. Our hero rejects the offer and goes home. The next day everything begins as normal, but his wife hands him one of the salesman's cards that she found in her pocket. Creepy. He gets to work and the laughing salesman is there to meet him. He insists on helping our hero and then he leaves. After this, your wife calls and things start to get super stressful at work and finally he snaps. He just can't take it anymore. He sees the card and he decides to contact the laughing salesman. He arrives and then he tricks our hero into caressing a giant statue which basically reverts his mental state back into that of a baby. But that's not all, oh no. The laughing salesman goes, gets your family, and brings them to see what you're really being cradled by. And that image is gonna torture them forever and destroy the family. Then he walks away, happy with his work and very, very amused. How messed up is this guy? Interestingly, you can make choices within the game that affect the outcome, so you don't have to end it the same way the anime did. You can actually get a somewhat decent ending if you choose the right path. There are 3 episodes to play through here, and all of them are basically 16-bit representations of the episode that they're based on. It's really cool how faithful they were to the original show while at the same time adding new scenes and choices. In this episode, you play as a guy who seems to have the perfect life, but he craves adventure. In the cartoon, he gets this disguise, but in the game you can choose your own alter ego, which completely changes the path you go down. And the 3rd episode is about an illustrator who loves drawing and just wants to sell them, but he can't. The laughing salesman tricks him into getting stabbed in the arm so he can never draw again. In the game, you can come to a different ending, like getting arrested by the cops for an assault you didn't commit. Like I said, this guy is bad news. Obviously, this game isn't very accessible to non-Japanese speakers, and that's a shame. A little bit of text translation and a whole slew of subtitles is really all it needs. If you like creepy-ass Japanese stuff that loads pretty damn slow, then check this one out.
Bones Adventure on the PC Engine was a port of the 1988 arcade game by Taito. You play the role of a Buddhist monk out to do what? I don't know. Your weapons of choice are Buddhist prayer beads. There are 4 different types of beads and all of them have a different type of magic. You can power up these beads by collecting more of the same color and they become ridiculously huge but are really fun to wield. You use your magic by pressing down in the fire button. One of your prayer beads will flash and then do its thing. This is great and all, but there is a catch. Once you use your magic, the size of your prayer bead will get smaller. If you use up all the magic, you'll reset your beads to the basic blue shot. I found it more to my advantage to not use magic and just keep a powered up prayer bead. I like the atmosphere in this game. The graveyard in the first level is great. I also really like this bloody pond you're crossing where you're walking on hands and feet of, I'm guessing, dead people. Thanks for the hand. Oh yeah, I know, that was stupid. There's hidden stuff everywhere in this game, so fire at everything because you never know what's going to pop up and where. Most of the collectible icons are point related or have something to do with your beads, but every now and again something good comes up. At first I thought this game was really hard because one hit and you are dead. You get 3 lives per continue and Taito was super generous and gave you a whopping 3 continues. Thanks Taito, how very nice of you. I mean the game is still tough, but the more you play it and get used to how things go and patterns of enemies, it does become much easier and a lot more fun to play. To round it out, the game has a nice soundtrack that I really enjoyed. This is another great game that was left in Japan. But if you have a PS2 or an Xbox, then you're in luck because the arcade version of this game is included on Taito Legends 2.
Ane-san is a beat-em-up for the PC Engine Super CD. The very first thing to say about this game is that all of your characters are women and all of your enemies are women. There are no male sprites in the game at all. I have absolutely no idea what the story is behind this game. According to the intro, I'm guessing maybe you were bullied as kids, but now as adults you're back to get revenge on your tormentors. I don't know if that's a real story or not, but it sounds cool. Anyway, you start by choosing your character and your stage. In the beginning, your character can only take 3 or 4 hits before she dies. And if she does die, she's dead forever and you have to continue on with the other 2 girls, both of which have their own unique fighting styles. Now, you don't have a huge variety of moves, but sometimes you can pull someone's hair again and again until they die. Every stage simply just scrolls to the right and there's always a mid-boss as well as the end boss. And these bosses are all extremely easy to defeat. Between the stages, you can buy stuff. I don't really know what any of this stuff does specifically, but if you buy the right stuff, your life bar is longer, your attacks are faster, and you even get more characters to choose from. And if you have room in your backup memory, you can save your game as well. And lastly, you can play the bonus game. Here you face off against another girl to see who can turn into a demon first, I guess? Why? There's only 5 stages in the game and overall it's pretty damn easy. Hell, you might even beat it the first time you play it. There really aren't a whole lot of different enemies. It still held my interest though. Visually, the game is not very impressive at all. About 1/3 of the screen is dedicated to the status bar for some reason, and most of the stages look very similar to one another. That's an interesting store back there. But the music, oh man, the music. It's a rockabilly paradise for sure, and I swear some of the music in Kill Bill sounds like it was inspired by this. It was done by Koji Hayama, and he's always churned out crazy music for games like Choaniki, Front Mission 3, and many others. It's definitely a soundtrack that's worth ripping. Overall, the game is fun, but it probably won't be one you'll be replaying a lot. It was probably never brought out for the TurboGrafx 16 because of the all-female violence factor. Or maybe they didn't bring it out because they hated bringing over stuff for the US market. Yeah, I think that seems more likely.
Do you remember Fortified Zone on the Game Boy? It's an okay game, but it has some control issues. There's also a game on the Super Nintendo called Operation Logic Bomb that's part of the series. It has a lot more depth to it and is pretty darn fun to play. But then there's Akari no Yosai 2, which is Fortified Zone 2 and it's on the Game Boy. It's the one game that didn't make it out of Japan and probably the most fun in the series. Surprise, surprise, once again I'm not sure of the story here, and actually I'm not sure there is a story anyway since you get thrown directly into the game after pressing start. So the object of the game is pretty simple. You wander around a large area with multiple floors trying to find this thing. Once you defeat this thing, you're taken to the actual level boss. These boss fights aren't horribly challenging, but they are fun. Anyways, it's actually a lot tougher than I make it sound. To get anywhere, you need to search all over for keys to unlock doors. You can also open up paths by bombing certain walls, or killing all enemies on a screen. You have 3 weapons to use, and you can switch between them on the fly, which is really nice. You have control of 2 people that you can switch to at any time by going to the map screen and hitting the select button. There are differences between the 2 characters. The man is slow, but he has a larger life bar. The woman has a smaller life bar, is a tad bit faster, and can jump. Her jumping ability is nice, but doesn't come into play much besides reaching a few areas around spikes. Once you die, you'll automatically switch to the other player. You'll do a lot of traversing back and forth, and completing a level will take a half hour or more sometimes. My only complaint would be that I wish the map screen would show you which rooms have stairs. That's it, as I enjoy everything else about this game. It has some nice graphics for the Game Boy, and it has a really good soundtrack that isn't annoying for how repetitive the songs are. Do yourself a favor and check this game out if you can.
Alright, and here we are coming to a close of another Left in Japan episode.
Yeah, pretty good one, I think.
A lot of great games.
A lot of great games. The ones that you played, I honestly have never heard of most of those.
Really? You haven't heard of Laughing Salesman? I mean, that's like the household name.
I guess well, not in my household.
Yeah.
But those are some awesome games. And watch episodes 1 through 6. I mean 5 first.
Yeah.
And then if there's games in there that we haven't mentioned that you like, let us know.
Yeah. And even if you haven't seen those episodes, be sure to tell us that we need to cover those games, even though we've already covered them.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have enough games for a Left in Japan 7 in the future.
Yeah, now that I have a Japanese PS3 account, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, what do you guys think of the games we covered, and what games should we cover in the future? Let us know. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. All right, Dave, let's do that one game you wanted to do for the Famicom.
Here's Nuts and Milk for the Famicom.
A game where you milk nuts.
Where the hell did they come from? Believe it or not, this is the first third-party game for a Nintendo system. This game is played on a single screen and is reminiscent of games like Bubble Bobble and Lolo. You play as a blob named Milk, and you need to rescue her from your nemesis, Nuts.
Have you even played the game?
I've never even heard of it until Dave just mentioned it.
Okay, I have nuts. Can you milk me?
What? Where are these guys coming from,
I
dude?
don't know. What the hell, man?
The goal of the game, as far as I can guess, is to collect fruit and free your girlfriend while avoiding enemies that Nuts places around the screen.
Every morning, Joe and or Dave get up. They grab a bowl, right? They pour the milk in, and then it's a bunch of dudes lined up around the lip of the bowl with their nuts just hanging in the cereal.
Dude, I bet it's not even a real game.
And they gotta sit there with the spoon, and they're slurping the milk with the nuts.
Dude, are they going to be doing that every time I say nuts?
I don't even like milk, just nuts.
I can't have this, man. I'm trying to do a serious review here.
It's almost like when you stand in front of a mirror and you spin around and saying Bloody Mary over and over, and she's supposed to show up. I think when you say nuts, these guys just automatically show up.
That's all we're here for. That's all we're good for is nut jokes.
As you can see, it's not much to look at with a black background and minimal stage settings. But just because it doesn't look good doesn't mean that Nuts and Milk isn't a fun game to play.
I think D likes it.
Who's D?
D's nuts.
Oh!
Dude, what is up with these guys? I mean, look at this. They've got a ladder holding up a Super Nintendo sign. What?
I don't know, Dave. If you want to review a game with nuts in the title.
So when you're milking the nuts, is it common practice to have said milk go into like your mouth?
See, they even interrupt me.
Thank God Eric's not there. This thing would be freaking ridiculous if he was.
If Eric was right here, our output would be exponentially growing.
I had a great time figuring out the best way to beat each stage, and before I knew it, the game was almost over.
Nuts, nuts, nuts. Milk, milk, milk.
All right, Billy and Jay, why don't you suck on D's nuts, man? I've had enough of you guys interrupting our video here. Joe, I can't do this, dude. They're infecting the whole thing.
Where are you going, Dave? You can't handle our nuts?
I think they just do what they is.
I'm going to pick another game, all right? Because Nuts and Milk is just not going to work. How about Bones Adventure? I mean, nobody can make fun of Bones Adventure. He's a little boner.